Welcome to the deep dive, where we try to cut through the noise, all the hype, and get to those aha moments. Today, we're going to be looking at Wi-Fi security.
Okay.
Not the basic kind of change your password every 30 days Wi-Fi security. We're talking about truly secure Wi-Fi, the kind that keeps even the most sophisticated attackers at bay.
Yeah, that's a lot of companies, they treat their Wi-Fi security like a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Good for a quick caffeine fix,
Right.
but not much else. But there's a much more robust way,
Right.
and it's built on these principles of zero trust.
Okay. Zero trust. Now, that's a buzzword I keep hearing.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I need a little bit of a refresher.
Okay.
Can we break that down a little bit?
Absolutely. Zero trust. It basically means that you never assume anything or anyone is trustworthy. It's like having security checkpoints throughout a building, not just at the front door. You're constantly verifying, even for users and devices that are already inside the network.
So it's not just about keeping the bad guys out.
Right.
It's about making sure that even if somebody gets in, they can't do a lot of damage.
Exactly. And when it comes to Wi-Fi, one of the best ways to implement zero trust is with a technology called EAP-TLS.
EAP-TLS, oh, that sounds pretty technical.
Yeah.
Why is it so important?
Think about how most Wi-Fi networks authenticate users. You enter a password, right?
Right.
The problem is passwords, they can be stolen, they can be guessed, or even cracked.
We hear about these data breaches all the time where passwords are compromised.
Exactly. EAP-TLS, it doesn't rely on passwords. Instead, it uses digital certificates to verify the identity of both the device and the network. So like two-factor authentication, but on a much more robust level.
So it's having a digital ID card that proves you are who you say you are.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. Certificates on their own can be exfiltrated, meaning that someone could steal your certificate and use it to impersonate your device.
Stolen. So even certificates aren't foolproof.
That's why you need an extra layer of security.
Okay.
And that's where this thing called ACME Device Attestation comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this ACME thing.
ACME stands for Automatic Certificate Management Environment. It's a protocol that was actually co-authored by Smallstep and Google.
Wow.
It's a way to automatically issue and renew certificates, but it also adds this very crucial element where it binds the certificate to the hardware of the device.
So even if somebody steals the certificate, they can't use it on another device.
Exactly. It's like having a key that only works in one specific lock. ACME Device Attestation makes it virtually impossible for someone to impersonate your device.
Okay, now we're talking. This sounds like the level of security that companies really need.
Yeah.
Especially with all the sensitive data that's flying around on Wi-Fi networks these days. Financial data, customer data, all that.
Exactly. And that's why Smallstep's Wi-Fi solution is so powerful. They've combined EAP-TLS with ACME Device Attestation to create a Wi-Fi security solution that's both highly secure and incredibly difficult to compromise.
So it sounds like they've really thought of everything.
They really have.
But before we get too deep into the specifics of how their solution works,
Sure.
I think it's important to take a step back and make sure everybody understands the basics
Okay.
of Wi-Fi security. What are the fundamental principles that everybody needs to know?
Well, it all boils down to these three core pillars: authentication, encryption, and message integrity. And these three elements work together to create a secure Wi-Fi experience.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. We've already talked a bit about authentication. Can you just give us a quick refresher?
Sure. Authentication is simply the process of verifying the identity of a user or device that's trying to access the network. It's like an ID check at the door of a club. You need to prove that you are who you say you are before you're allowed in.
Got it. So what about encryption? I know that it's about scrambling data,
Yeah.
but can you explain how that works in the context of Wi-Fi?
Imagine that you're sending a secret message that's written in a code that only you and the recipient know. Encryption is like that secret code. It takes your data and transforms it into an unreadable format that can only be deciphered with the right key.
So even if somebody intercepts my Wi-Fi signal, they can't actually read what I'm sending because it's all scrambled.
Exactly. Encryption is essential for protecting sensitive information, like passwords, financial data, or anything that you wouldn't want prying eyes to see.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about that third pillar you mentioned, message integrity?
Message integrity is all about ensuring that the data that you send hasn't been tampered with in transit. So it's like a guarantee that the message you receive is exactly the same as the one that was sent.
So it's not just about keeping the information secret. It's also about making sure that it hasn't been altered or corrupted along the way.
Precisely. Message integrity is crucial for preventing attacks where someone might try to inject malicious code or modify data in transit.
Okay, so we've got our 3 pillars of Wi-Fi security.
Yes.
Authentication, encryption, and message integrity.
Yep.
These are the foundation of any secure Wi-Fi network, right?
Absolutely. And now that we have a good grasp of the basics, let's talk about the different ways Wi-Fi networks handle authentication.
Okay.
This is where we start to see the difference between that coffee shop approach and a truly secure setup.
All right, we're going to dive deeper. What are the different types of Wi-Fi authentication, and how do they compare in terms of security?
There are 3 main authentication modes for Wi-Fi: open, personal, and enterprise.
Okay.
Open networks, as the name suggests, are completely open. Anyone can connect without entering a password.
Oh, like the Wi-Fi at my local coffee shop.
Exactly. Open networks are convenient, but they offer the lowest level of security. There's no authentication to verify who's connecting, and typically no encryption either.
So anybody on that network could potentially see what I'm doing.
It's a risk for sure. That's why it's best to avoid sending sensitive information over open networks. If you must use them, consider a VPN for an extra layer of protection.
Good advice.
Yeah.
What about the next level up, what's called personal networks? I think that's what most people have at home.
You're right. Personal mode is the most common setup for homes and small offices.
Okay.
It uses what's called a pre-shared key, or PSK, which is essentially the Wi-Fi password that you enter when connecting.
So there's at least a password protecting thing.
Right.
But is that enough to make it truly secure?
It's better than nothing.
Right.
But personal mode does have some weaknesses. The biggest one is that everyone on the network uses the same password.
Okay.
So if that password gets out, the whole network is compromised. So it's like having one key that unlocks the door for everyone.
Exactly.
Not ideal if you're a company with sensitive data to protect.
And that brings us to the most secure option, enterprise mode.
Okay.
This is where things get really interesting, especially when we start talking about Smallstep solution.
Okay, lay it on me. What makes enterprise mode so much more secure?
Enterprise mode takes a completely different approach. Instead of a shared password, it uses individual credentials for each user or device.
Okay.
It relies on a protocol called 802.1x, which provides a framework for authenticating individual users and devices before granting them access to the network.
It says each person having their own unique key to unlock the door.
Precisely. And this is where that RADIUS server we talked about earlier comes into play.
RADIUS server, remind me what that is again?
Think of it as a central authentication hub that verifies user credentials.
Okay.
Instead of your laptop checking the password directly with the Wi-Fi router,
Right.
it talks to this RADIUS server. So it's like having a separate security checkpoint before you can even get to the main door.
Perfect analogy.
I like that.
The beauty of this system is that it allows for much more granular control over who has access to the network and what they can do once they're connected.
This is all starting to make sense now.
Good.
But I have to admit, this level of security sounds a bit complicated. Is this something that's only practical for large companies with dedicated IT departments?
Traditionally, yes.
Okay.
Setting up and managing enterprise Wi-Fi, especially with certificate-based authentication, could be a real headache, but that's where Smallstep comes in.
Okay.
They've made the whole process incredibly simple and accessible.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about how Smallstep is changing the game for enterprise Wi-Fi security.
As we mentioned earlier, Smallstep fully embraces the zero trust model. They achieve this by using EAP-TLS, which is considered the gold standard for secure Wi-Fi authentication.
We touched on EAP-TLS earlier.
We did.
Can you remind us what makes it so special?
Sure. Unlike other authentication methods that rely on passwords, EAP-TLS uses certificates to verify the identity of both the device and the network. So it's like a double ID check at the club.
I'm seeing the zero trust principle in action here.
Exactly.
Both sides need to prove they are who they say they are before any connection is made.
That's right. And this mutual authentication makes EAP-TLS incredibly resistant to common attacks like phishing or credential theft.
So it's more secure, but is it also more user-friendly?
It is. EAP-TLS authentication actually requires fewer steps than traditional methods. So this can significantly speed up connection times and reduce the chances of disconnections.
So it's more secure and more user-friendly. That's a win.
Exactly.
But you also mentioned that certificates can be exfiltrated.
Yes.
How does Smallstep address that potential vulnerability?
That's where their use of ACME Device Attestation comes in.
Okay.
This technology, which they co-authored with Google, takes device verification to a whole new level. It's a game changer.
Okay. I'm ready to have my game changed. Tell me everything.
ACME Device Attestation ensures that the certificate used for authentication is bound to the specific hardware of the device. It's like a digital fingerprint that can't be copied or stolen.
So even if someone managed to steal the certificate, they couldn't use it on a different device.
Precisely. The certificate becomes useless without the original hardware.
Wow, that's seriously impressive. So Smallstep is combining the power of EAP-TLS with ACME Device Attestation
They are.
to create a Wi-Fi security solution that's both highly secure and incredibly difficult to compromise.
Exactly. And they've done it in a way that's surprisingly easy for companies to deploy and manage, even those without large IT teams.
That's great to hear. It sounds like they've really thought of everything.
They have. But the best part is this is just the tip of the iceberg. Smallstep's device identity platform goes beyond Wi-Fi to secure VPNs, applications, and more. But I think we'll have to save that for the next part of our deep dive.
You're killing me with that cliffhanger. All right, we'll have to pick this up next time, but for now, welcome back to the deep dive. We were talking before about how Smallstep combines EAP-TLS and ACME Device Attestation to create a truly zero-trust solution for Wi-Fi.
We were.
But there's another piece of the puzzle that makes their approach so compelling.
Right.
They've managed to make this advanced level of security incredibly easy to deploy and manage.
They have.
You mentioned that traditionally setting up enterprise-grade Wi-Fi security, especially with certificate-based authentication, was a major headache for companies.
Yeah, it could be.
What did Smallstep do to simplify things?
One of the biggest hurdles was always the complexity of setting up and managing a public key infrastructure, or PKI.
Okay.
Think of PKI as the system for creating, managing, and distributing digital certificates, which are the foundation of EAP-TLS authentication.
Okay, PKI.
Yeah.
That rings a bell.
Yeah.
I know certificates are important for security.
Right.
But can you remind me why PKI is so crucial?
It's all about trust. PKI establishes a chain of trust that allows devices and networks to verify the authenticity of certificates. Imagine you receive a letter with an official seal on it.
Okay.
You trust that letter because you trust the authority that issued the seal. PKI works in a similar way.
Okay.
Providing a way to verify the legitimacy of digital certificates.
So without PKI, it would be difficult to know if a certificate is actually valid and trustworthy, right?
Exactly. Traditionally, setting up your own PKI involved a lot of specialized knowledge, expensive software, and ongoing maintenance. It was a major barrier to entry for a lot of companies.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did Smallstep solve this PKI problem?
They made it disappear. Smallstep provides a fully managed PKI as part of their platform.
Okay.
Which means they take care of all the heavy lifting for you.
Wait, they manage the entire PKI for their customers?
They do.
That sounds like a game changer.
It is. It's like having a dedicated team of experts handling all the complexity of PKI so you can focus on securing your Wi-Fi network.
Smallstep takes care of generating certificates, storing them securely and handling renewals, and even revoking them if a device is lost or compromised.
So companies can just plug into Smallstep's managed PKI.
Right.
And avoid all the hassle of setting up and maintaining their own infrastructure.
Precisely.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
And it's not just the PKI. Remember we talked about that RADIUS server being a crucial part of enterprise Wi-Fi authentication.
Yes.
Smallstep provides a RADIUS server as part of their platform too.
That's right.
Hold on.
Yeah.
They handle the PKI and the RADIUS server.
Yes.
They're a one-stop shop for secure Wi-Fi.
That's right. This integrated approach is a big deal.
Yeah.
Companies can get up and running with EAP-TLS quickly and easily without having to piece together different solutions from multiple vendors. It's all seamlessly integrated within this Smallstep platform.
This is making me rethink my entire home Wi-Fi setup.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the practical side for a minute.
How does this play out in a real-world setting?
Sure.
What does it look like for a company to actually deploy Smallstep's solution?
It's actually pretty straightforward. Smallstep integrates seamlessly with popular mobile device management platforms like Jamf and Intune.
MDM.
Yes.
That's the software companies use to manage all the smartphones and laptops that employees use, right?
Exactly. Most companies already use MDM solutions to push out software updates, configure security settings, and enforce company policies on devices.
So Smallstep just plugs right into those existing systems.
That's right.
That's great.
IT administrators can easily deploy certificates and configure Wi-Fi settings on all managed devices without any complicated manual processes.
So it really streamlines the whole deployment.
It does.
And makes ongoing management much easier.
Exactly.
So it's not just about having a secure solution. It's about making that solution easy to implement and manage at scale.
It is.
That's huge for companies, especially those without massive IT departments.
Yeah, absolutely. Smallstep understands that security is only effective if it's usable.
Right.
They've made their platform as user-friendly and intuitive as possible.
I can definitely see how that would be a major selling point for companies.
Yeah.
But let's step out of the IT department for a moment.
Sure.
Talk about the end user experience. How does this all impact the everyday experience of connecting to the company Wi-Fi?
From the user's perspective, the connection process is seamless.
Okay.
Once their device is enrolled and configured, they simply select the Wi-Fi network and connect, just like they would with any other secure network. There's no need to remember complicated passwords or deal with annoying connection issues.
So it's more secure, easier to manage, and provide the better user experience.
It does.
It sounds like Smallstep has really cracked the code for secure Wi-Fi.
They have. But as I hinted at earlier, their device identity platform extends far beyond Wi-Fi. Their technology can be applied to a wide range of use cases, including VPNs, applications, and even cloud infrastructure.
Okay, now you're really making me curious.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but I think we need to dive deeper into those other applications.
Let's do it. We'll explore the full potential of Smallstep's platform in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been exploring Smallstep's revolutionary approach to Wi-Fi security, and I have to say I'm impressed. They've really thought of everything.
Yeah, they have. But what's even more exciting is that this is really just the beginning. As we teased earlier, Smallstep's vision goes beyond just Wi-Fi. Their device identity platform has the potential to revolutionize security for a wide range of applications and services.
That's what I'm eager to dig into. What are some of the other areas where Smallstep's technology can make a real difference?
Let's start with VPNs. A lot of companies rely on VPNs to provide secure remote access to their internal networks.
Yeah, VPNs are pretty much essential these days with so many people working remotely.
Absolutely. But traditional VPNs, they often rely on usernames and passwords for authentication, which, as we know, are vulnerable to attacks.
So we're back to the password problem again. It seems like passwords are the weakest link in so many security chains.
They really are.
Yeah.
But Smallstep can replace those flimsy passwords with certificates and device attestation,
Okay.
bringing that same level of robust security to VPN authentication.
So instead of entering a password, you would use your device certificate to connect to the VPN.
Exactly. By integrating Smallstep with their VPN solution, companies can ensure that only authorized devices verified with that unforgeable digital fingerprint we talked about can access their network remotely.
So no more worrying about stolen or weak passwords compromising your entire VPN.
That's right. And VPNs are really just the beginning.
Okay.
Think about all the cloud applications and services that companies use every day.
Yeah, like what?
Things like email, file sharing, project management tools, they all require authentication.
And most of them rely on passwords.
Most of them, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
But with Smallstep, companies can extend that same level of certificate-based authentication and device attestation to all of their cloud applications.
So instead of having to remember, dozens of different passwords for all these different services, employees could just use their device certificate to access everything securely.
Exactly. It really streamlines the user experience, reduces the risk of password-related breaches, and creates a much more consistent and secure approach to identity and access management.
I'm starting to see how Smallstep's approach goes beyond just securing individual devices or networks.
Right.
It's really about rethinking the entire concept of digital identity and building a more secure foundation for the way we work and live online.
You've hit the nail on the head. Smallstep is at the forefront of this shift towards a more secure and trustworthy digital world, where device identity is a fundamental building block of security.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been.
I feel like I've gone from knowing next to nothing about Wi-Fi security to really understanding the bigger picture of device identity and the future of online security.
I'm glad to hear that. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But I hope you've come away with a deeper appreciation for the importance of strong security, not just for Wi-Fi, but for all aspects of our digital lives.
I definitely have. And for our listeners out there who are ready to ditch their coffee shop approach to security and embrace a more robust solution.
Yeah.
I think Smallstep has a lot to offer.
I couldn't agree more. So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another deep exploration of the ideas that are shaping our world.